so in other words, the person says facts don't require a basis.
Okay. However, there is now one.
If somebody said facts don't require a basis, that would be as incoherent as saying I have a square triangle.
Okay. Yeah. The basis for these facts, as you put it, are either a personal absolute or an impersonal absolute. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the problem with that whole thing is we are now trying sorry, I messed up the beginning of my sentence. We can you are denying that an agnostic who states that the basis for his fact is either a personal or an impersonal creator. So he says, if you ask him, does your fact require the existence of a personal absolute? And he says no. And you ask him, does your fact require the existence of a impersonal absolute? He answers no to both these questions. You say he therefore doesn't make any sense. That's the point where he speaks gobbledygook.
And
right?
yet, and he still then what he's going to do when he says I don't know.
He doesn't say I don't know. He says it requires neither a personal nor an impersonal creator. Absolute.
Good. Then he's still denying that he's still denying that God is required as the origin point. And if you deny that God is the origin point, okay, you're not an agnostic.
Okay, but he's also yeah. I'm not
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
That agnostic.
It doesn't matter.
It depends how do you define God.
We're defining God as the personal absolute. Okay, so the bottom line is there's no escaping this for the agnostic. This is an ironclad critique.
Okay, yeah. The problem is why do you insist on calling it a personal or an unpersonal absolute? Shouldn't the first question you ask them be, does your fact require an absolute, no matter how it looks?
Well, the reason why I don't.
No,
okay.
Please let me finish. You're presenting a dichotomy before it's even established whether or not facts need absolutes.
Okay. The reason why I don't ask that is because that position is just simply incoherent, and anyone who would espouse such a thing would philosophically implode. They would. Have you ever heard the word immolate? It means to light yourself on fire. Okay, where you destroy yourself. Okay, so the fact of the matter is, it's rare. It's extremely rare that somebody will simply deny that there's no absolute. All right, that's why I don't need to address it. If it comes up, I can address it.
Well, how do you explain this?
See, let me just say this. Yeah. I don't agree with you at all. Okay, but your evaluation of what I'm saying is very sharp. You're showing that you have critical thinking skills, and I just want to point out, Concrete. You'll notice how the two of us are interacting here. Are you there, Concrete? He must be AFK. Or everyone else notice in the room. We're completely disagreeing, but the guy's not trolling. He's not obfuscating. He's not being obstructionistic.
He does have very valid points, though.
You know, I mean, I don't agree with him, but the point is, he's offering critical thinking skills to the table, and there's not one bit of trolling or obstructionism here, and I appreciate that, because your approach is very rare on Discord. I don't get people who are as thoughtful as you are.
I've joined yesterday, so maybe I haven't been tainted yet.
No, but so far, so good. But I mean, I'm going to tell you, I completely disagree with you, but you are raising a very good analysis of the situation. So the point is, someone's either going to have to say, well, a fact doesn't require either a personal or an impersonal absolute. That's still the denial of the existence of God.
Well,
I'm an atheist.
May I just answer that one point quickly, and then you can speak, okay, please, because I think it's important to do it directly
All
after
right,
you
that's
said.
it. Go.
Yes, you can be at the point of saying that fact does neither require the existence of a personal or an impersonal absolute, but still agree to the idea that that an absolute has to exist. That's the whole problem I have with it. If you can just because you don't want to make any Aussage, any statement about the personhood of that absolute, that doesn't automatically mean that you therefore deny the
If you
existence
say
of an underlying absolute.
if you say I don't know which it is, that functions as a de facto denial.
Well, not really. The I don't know
Do you
part
know?
of the whole.
Do you know what? Do you know what? Okay, because I know English is not your first language. Your English is fantastic, by the way. So don't belittle yourself there. But a de facto denial is not one where somebody comes right out and says it. It's a denial by implication. Okay. So if you say,
Okay,
I don't know what that absolute is, that functions as a denial. Okay.
I wouldn't agree with that, because you can say I'm really bad with analogies, but you could in that case potentially say yes, facts require absolutes. We can all agree on that. All fact needs a basis in some form of absolute that is
All right, listen.
all
I have to step out for a second. So feel free to continue the conversation with others. I should be back in around 5 minutes. Okay.
all right. I'm sorry, Argent Venta. I interrupted you.
He's gone now.
Okay.
What are you? You're an atheist, right?
Yeah. The problem I'm having with his assessment, and I hope you all understand it, is that he says he presents for the agnostic either the option of saying, well, there's either a personal or an impersonal absolute, and
I
he
don't
then
care about all
claims
these
that if
little
he denies,
fancy
well,
words.
give me a second.
Nah, it's just little it's bullshit. He's just trying to make it more complex for no reason. It's bullshit. But
Hey, can I?
let me tell you
heard?
something.
Yes.
What are you gonna say?
The problem is that if you explore these kind of questions, you should start with one step at a time. He makes two steps. He asks both: is there an absolute, and is that absolute personal or impersonal? You should start with: is there
I don't
absolute?
care
And then
about the
if one of
absolute.
those,
All I know is that he believes a fairy tale. It's like saying Santa Claus is gonna be a god because some people believe in him. Let's just make a holy book out of Santa Claus and make him rule.
Yeah, it's almost like an agenda. He's right to his point and only his point. Yeah, instead of going straight to the point that you should ask the other, he does tend to go just like there's almost like a two-step verification.
Yeah, he starts with the assumption that there must be an absolute, but that doesn't have to be the case.
but I would actually agree that there has to be some sort of absolute for reality to function. Yeah, and even if that absolute is simply
that's the big
things exist, there is the possibility of something existing. That might be the absolute, the minimum absolute. That is an absolute, although it's extremely impersonal.
Right.
But
Well,
the
it's
problem
still
is
an assumption. It's still an assumption.
it is still an assumption, but it's the basis for all of reality.
No, I have a question. So let's say if God is real and there's a universe out there, why would he be focused on us and not other? Why
I wouldn't agree that there is a God, but that's not the point of discussion right now.
like I said, if there was a God.
I think you are pointing out something very out of topic here.
Like, no.
We're in the same discussion, but very deep into it.
Yeah, well, the point of the discussion right now is that I believe that his whole argument for God, for the existence of God, hinges on the idea that you can have only one of two stances. Either the stance that there is an personal or an impersonal God, and he tries, and the whole argument would collapse. And at least I believe the whole argument would collapse if I managed to pin him down to accept the fact that yes, you can have somebody who doesn't want to make a statement, who believes in an absolute, but doesn't want to make a statement about the personhood of that absolute. Because
Jesus Christ, this chat is retarded.
Can I, right, so I want to get in because, like, every time I try to speak when Darth's around, he mutes me. So I'll address you guys, right? So yeah, Skaal. So yeah, there's a couple of things, right? So first off, the dichotomy that he posed to you, right, is it is a dichotomy, right? Either God or not God. So that's fine. He doesn't argue. He has no argument for absolutism, right? But let's grant that, like you did. Let's just say absolutism is a required position for facts and stuff. If you ask him why that absolute standard can't be, like you said, non-personal, non-personal, right? All he replies to that is that, what was his exact words? That they philosophically implode, or some nonsense like that. They can't hold water, but he doesn't have an argument. He can't.
Okay, yeah, that's one point deeper into the conversation. I honestly I've never gotten past the point of is there such a thing as an agnostic? I've never gotten past that point with him because I think that even there, the first point he's making is illogical.
Right. So his position on
every point about God is illogical, dude.
His position on agnosticism is a bit specialist. You've got to remember that whenever Darth brings his philosophy to the table.
Why do you call him Darth, by the way?
Oh, because he's gone through a couple of pseudonyms on G+. I don't know if you ever remember the G+ days where videos would be. Right, so G+ used to have Hangouts, and the Hangouts would be uploaded to YouTube. And he was originally known as Darth Dawkins.
Oh, Dawkins. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, as in Richard Dawkins. So Darth Dawkins was like his YouTube alias. And then before that, he was called Evolution False, I think. And another one is called Stephen J. Fool. I think that was one of his others. But if you go to Darwin's Greatest Hits on YouTube, you'll see why, like, all the references to Darth Dawkins. Anyway.
Okay.
So like this idea, let's grant the idea of the absolute, right? And for his philosophy, when he brings it into the table, he regards God as a necessary precondition. So the idea behind a necessary precondition, obviously, is that it's a constant. It's a requirement in the philosophy. I don't know how strongly how else to say it other than it's necessary, right? So whenever he espouses anything, right, he's already defining, right? He's just defining into existence, right, this criteria of his God, and just saying it's a necessary thing, right, for every fact, every proclamation, everything. Which is why he says whenever you make a comment that doesn't involve God, from his worldview, right, he thinks that's a denial of God.
I understand that, but that's why I raised the point of whenever you make a comment that doesn't involve non-God, which is the impersonal absolute, then you're denying the existence of non-God, which means you automatically believe in God, and that's the whole problem I have with his line of reasoning.
I agree.
Presents the two things as equals, non-God and God, but then proceeds to say that only statements which don't involve God automatically deny the existence of God, whereas statements that don't involve that deny or don't involve the existence of non-God don't automatically deny the existence of non-God. That doesn't make any sense. The two are in his mind equals.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's where he begs the question.
I don't know the expression begging the question, to be honest.
So the begging of a question means simply means to assume the position that's being argued for. So if the argument, So if the argument is
God is default.
Yeah, so if the argument,
so he's almost waiting for the question, like he's always on guard with the question. Yeah.
Yeah, so when we're trying to question whether or not we have to start from impersonal or personal, when he does that, he begs the question by already starting from the personal and just assuming that to be the case. That's what it means to me.
So do I technically
he does
win
that, but
without?
sorry.
Do I win without questioning him? Is that the best way to get out of this?
Everybody wins by not questioning him and just leaving him alone.
The problem I'm having right now is that he basically does two things. He does that. He begs the question. He assumes that God is the standard, and every deviation from that is therefore has to be proven. That's begging the question, as far as I understand. And additionally, he also skips a step and presents the dichotomy of either a personal or an impersonal absolute, without actually taking the step of establishing whether or not there is even an absolute. That's the whole problem. You can, I mean, it's hard to come up with an analogy, but it's like asking, is this a wooden or a plastic chair, when pointing to something chair-like, and you say I don't know, then it's like he's denying that he's telling you that you therefore don't think it's a chair.
This is another
right.
This is another point I wanted to bring up real quick, is the agnosticism thing. So when we're referring to like agnosticism and those positions, right, all we mean, or all I think most people mean when they say that, is that they haven't come to a belief either way, right? They aren't beholden to a belief. Now, when Darth talks about this, he's actually saying something quite ridiculous, like so ridiculous you wouldn't believe when he says there can't be this sort of indecisiveness. What he's saying there is that all your beliefs are already made up. That's what he's saying there. He's saying something ridiculous like you're already beholden to all these beliefs, which just
I don't
isn't
think
the case.
Well, I would agree with that, but he could then again argue that whenever you could still change your beliefs. It's possible to change your belief. I agree that I don't have an opinion. He's basically saying I don't have an opinion on Steve who lives in the desert because I don't know of him. But he tries to pinpoint it to, yes, okay, you do have an opinion on him, namely that he doesn't exist because you don't know about his existence.
Right, and that's just false, right? That's just
there are many logical fallacies that he argues, but I'm trying to get through at least get him to see one of them. But if it doesn't work, I think I might just
and for Scorpion, Scorpio, are you still here?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So, like, just to clarify on what Darth said at the very beginning of the conversation, because I want to put this on for the record. I have had 3, maybe 4 actual conversations with him. And by actual conversation, I mean a back and forth, right, where I can converse with him, I ask questions and he asks questions to me. After that point where I kept presenting him with questions that he couldn't answer, he put me on the troll list. And now you saw it, right? After about 30 seconds.
This reminds me a lot of Mr. Batman.
Yeah, Mr. Batman, Jim.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to comprehend people like this because it's almost like they run around with an agenda. You know what I mean?
For sure.
I
Oh
don't.
yeah.
This was my first experience and probably my last. Because next time I don't want to be around when he.
I mean, what'll happen is if you keep bringing up your legitimate, and they are legitimate questions, right, to his philosophy, he won't provide you with an argument. He'll just keep restating his position, and if you don't accept his position, he'll call you a troll and do what he did with me.
Okay.
Right.
Well, look, you saw it when you asked him, right? You asked him to show that I'd had multiple conversations, and he just turns around and says, either you believe me or you don't. And if you don't
Yeah,
believe me, you're being
he-
muted.
Right. And he proceeded to do that, and I. And then I went on to say, "Can you elaborate? Whatever point that was that producer brought," and he kind of misguided the conversation into just trying to get me to believe whatever. I mean,
That's
it's
it.
very
That's
very
that's the thing. Like for everyone, like just as a general for everyone, that's the thing to remember about Darth, right? He won't answer your questions directly. Most of the time, if he ever does give you a straight answer, it's often just a question begging one where he'll restate his position, um, and he just tries to assert everything, and he'll mute anyone that disagrees with him.
For my first experience when I have people like that, I just tend to listen, and then I have a process with people like that because I can tell right away, kind of, his ideologies and all the different types of ways that he presents himself. Like Mr. Batman, dude, the first experience with Mr. Batman, me and him was crazy. From then, I've literally been on a room with Mr. Batman again after the first, back and forth, and I was just like, I don't want to be in there. I don't
Wouldn't you agree, sir?
Yeah, well, sir, I'm gonna turn you down at 3% now, sir. It's just these people that what I call an agenda, a very agenda way of thinking, a very aggressive way to try to get the person you're trying to get the point across with to just agree and agree and agree. You'll have no other option but to agree, and that's not the way to do it.
There's also other issues. This is just to help like continue like with the arguments and stuff. There's also other issues that exist with his position of God being necessary. So just to like outline that real quick, if God is necessary, right, and all facts are dependent on this necessary thing, it means that all facts are necessary facts, right? So it just follows that the world is now a necessary world. So there are no dependent facts if God is a necessary being. There are only necessary facts.
Okay.
That's the other issue.
But we haven't even got there yet. Crushing
All right,
you're back?
on that note, I'm gonna have to call
back.
it a day and leave.
Okay.
I have to go
Goodbye.
take care of some of those things IRL. So nice talking to you guys.
Bye. Yeah, wait, where were we stopping? Ah, yeah, exactly. Okay, Krushen, you and I both think, I think we both agree that an absolute is necessary, right?
Yes.
Okay, you're eating. Then I'll try and carry the conversation. An absolute is necessary. You, however, if you ask the question to an agnostic, don't ask him whether or not an absolute is necessary. You ask him the dichotomy of is there that a personal or an impersonal absolute necessary. Now the problem with that is when we ask those questions.
Either you accept that God is a necessary precondition, or you do not accept it. If you do not accept it, that is a denial.
Yes, I understand that. That's the whole point. However, we are trying to slowly but surely establish one question by one whether or not what the agnostic is believing. And if you ask him, do you believe in a personal absolute, which is the question of do you believe in God? Then you are asking him not one but two questions. Do you believe in an absolute, and do you believe that that absolute is personal? And I don't think that's fair. I think you should first ask him, do you believe in an absolute?
It has
And then
nothing to do
ask
with
him,
fairness. All I have to do is say, do you accept that God is the necessary precondition? The non-acceptance of God being the precondition is a denial.
okay, yeah, I understand that, but God could also be called the personal absolute, right?
Say that again?
God could be called the personal absolute, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what you're asking them, do you accept that the personal absolute, which I call God, is the necessary precondition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now you could also offer up the question of, hey, do you believe that the non-personal absolute, which is the opposite of the God, is a necessary preposition? Preposition, yeah, that's the word, preposition. And he could also say yes or no to that, and therefore he also denies the existence of a non-necessary absolute, of a non-personal absolute. However,
then he's denying both of them. Okay.
Yes.
Right, and it doesn't escape the fact that his non-acceptance is a denial of God as the precondition.
Okay, yeah, but the problem I have here is you're asking, if you ask somebody, do you accept the existence of a personal absolute? You're asking him both. Do you accept the existence of an absolute, and do you accept the existence, do you accept that absolute is personal? When you ask the opposite question, do you accept the existence of a non-personal absolute? You're asking him both. Do you accept the existence of an absolute, and do you accept that absolute is non-personal? So why this is the whole problem I have with let's go step by step. Why wouldn't we go step by step?
Because in certain situations, the non-acceptance is a denial in certain situations.
I understand that. Yeah.
The moment you deny by virtue of non-acceptance that God is the origin point for any fact, you have denied God's existence. Period.
Yes. Yeah, I actually agree with that. You know what? I actually agree with that. With the point you deny that a non-personal, a personal absolute exists, you've denied God's existence. However, that doesn't mean that you have denied the existence of an absolute, right? An absolute, no matter if it's personal or impersonal.
It doesn't matter. What we're trying to show is that agnosticism is in fact entails the denial of the existence of God, even though the agnostic does not think that they do. Remember my analogy about the electrical apprentice?
Yes.
It doesn't matter what he says. Doesn't matter what he says out of his mouth or what he says in his own head. What matters is the implications of what he says.
Yeah, I understand that. The whole problem I have right now is that we've established that every statement of fact needs to have an absolute origin, right?
Yes.
And that absolute origin is either personal or impersonal, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the problem I see now is if somebody, an agnostic, doesn't want to make a statement about the person or about the property of personhood, but he still still accepts that his statement is grounded in a fact, in an absolute. He doesn't. That statement does not automatically become gobbledygook because the statement is still grounded in an absolute. He just doesn't want to make any assertions about this absolute.
No, it's gobbledygook because when somebody says, "I don't know what it is," that's a functional. Excuse me. That's a functional denial. Okay, listen. If suppose you need there are certain things that if you don't accept it, they're tantamount to a denial. Now there are other things that if you don't accept it are not a denial. Like if you don't accept that there's gold on Mars, that's not a denial that there's gold on Mars. Okay.
Okay. Yeah,
but if you don't, if you do not accept my attempt to rescue you from drowning, you are denying my attempt to rescue you.
Yes, but okay.
So do you do you understand that sometimes non-acceptance is equivalent to denial and sometimes it is not?
Yes, I agree.
So the non-acceptance as God as the precondition of all facts
I don't have a problem
is
with
the
that.
denial of God as the precondition of all facts.
I agree. I completely agree. I don't think I've ever doubted that. I agree that if you say that if you deny that God exists, or if you say that I don't believe that God exists, then you're denying its existence. However, if we stay with your analogy, it's basically you can ask somebody. Wait a minute. Somebody asks, says, "I don't believe that there is gold on Mars." Okay, and that's a statement of fact. He doesn't believe it. However, this statement of fact requires the existence of Mars. All right. So that statement would only be nonsensical if Mars didn't exist.
Not necessarily. Someone could say, "I don't believe there's gold on Mars because there's no planet called Mars."
Yeah, exactly. This one is this is the denial. This is where the role you want to push the agnostic into.
However, but here's the bottom line: is do you now agree or not agree that agnosticism upon analysis is a functional denial of the existence of God?
If the agnostic answers with I don't know, or no, I don't believe a personal absolute exists, then yes.
Yeah. So agnosticism, in spite of what they think and in spite of what they say, have in effect, by implication, denied the existence of God, making agnosticism a self-contradiction.
Okay, I think we've established our positions now, and while I don't completely agree with you on certain points, I think we should move on.
That's fine.
Okay.
I can respect that. I mean, I'm amazed that I come across somebody who can disagree and do so in an intelligent manner, doesn't resort to trolling. We see trolling nonstop on Discord, so it's refreshing to talk with somebody like yourself. It's very much appreciated because it's rare.
Okay. I assume that you then can try and provide me with evidence or with a logical argument that God therefore exists. Let's say, yes, you can either deny.
God is the necessary. God is the necessary precondition. God is the necessary precondition for evidence to be a meaningful and intelligible concept. So since
wait,
God is the necessary precondition. Oh, okay, good. Then defend it.
Because
God is not the necessary precondition
we have
for intelligibility. What is then?
The non-personal absolute.
What is that? Well, before you answer that, I need to ask you a question. On what grounds do you not accept that God is the necessary precondition?
On the
What's
grounds
your what is your reason for not accepting?
on the grounds of Occam's razor, basically. Wait,
No, people have
let me
tried this
explain.
before.
Let me explain why.
It's
Okay,
not going to work. Okay, go ahead, but it's not going to work.
let me explain why. Personhood and non-personhood are properties of our universe, right? We know that everything in existence is either a person or not a person, right?
I'm listening.
No, right. I want. Do you agree so far?
Your position, you don't know anything.
No. My position is that everything in existence is either a person or not a person, right?
Yeah, you're relying on the law of non-contradiction.
No. Why? I haven't even made my point yet. Do you agree or disagree?
Well,
please just say that.
Okay, in my worldview, the law of non-contradiction applies, but you haven't established that.
What is the law of non-contradiction?
That A cannot equal not A.
Yeah, I agree.
You're stating a universal. Where'd you get that universal from?
The universe? Logic? Basic logic? That's the problem. Hold
on a second. Hold on a second.
Yes.
The law of non-contradiction is one of the foundational mental rules or laws. If you say I got it from logic, what you're just saying is I got it from your thinking. So in other words, one or more universals exist because you think that they do.
Okay, yeah, but the problem, the problem.
Can you establish? Can you establish that there is any universal just by virtue because you think a certain way?
No, can you?
No, but God can. But you see.
Okay, in that case, no. But my non-personal.
Well, guess what? You've now sealed your fate in this part of the conversation. You said by virtue of thinking, you cannot establish that any universal exists. So when you talk about something is either
Actually,
A or not,
I want to revoke my statement.
Okay,
I think we can establish that one universal exists, and that is me. I am sure of my existence. That is the only universal that is possible.
You're not understanding. You are not a universal. You're a particular.
Are you a universal?
No.
Okay.
You can't even establish that you are separate and distinct from other stuff. See, the bottom line here is this: when you do not accept that the God of the Bible is the necessary precondition of rationality, right? Then what you're going to have to do is step up to the table and tell me what is.
Okay, I say existence itself.
No, existence is not a predicate.
Well, the God of the Bible is the problem.
If you say existence, the problem with that is that the Eiffel Tower exists. Is the Eiffel Tower?
Not in that way. I don't believe that there is an option of non-existence. And that, however,
listen. Yeah, okay. What is existence? You're going to have to invoke an entity. What are you referring to? Existence.
I refer to existence. Existence as non-personal entity that is existence. Okay, then
that's completely. Are you familiar with the English word nebulous?
Yes.
What you're saying is nebulous. It doesn't mean anything.
Okay. To be honest,
drop the word.
Right now in the conversation,
drop the word existence. You're going to have to invoke some entity.
Do I?
What entity or
why do I? No. Why do I have to invoke an entity?
Because existence doesn't refer to anything.
Okay. Well.
Yeah, it does.
What do I need to refer to? That's the whole point. I don't really understand what you're asking from me.
You're going to have to tell me what if any entity exists.
So there's nothing to do with entities with the definition of existence. There's a small problem there.
It also means when he says that God exists.
End the Fed. Go away. You're not welcome in this room. You trolled me several times before, and it's not going to.
All right, look, if you want to cower in fear, that's
okay. Bye. Okay. I
honestly, at this point,
people
I'm
troll me like he did repeatedly.
Okay, Christian, just real quick, you can ask me.
I'm
all authority in the room. Please leave. Okay. Yeah. If you fuck with me in my own room, you're gonna lose your mods because Doobie.
Look, just chill out. Ask me to leave, and I'll leave immediately. That's all you got.
Get the fuck out.
Okay.
Yeah, get the fuck out, pussy.
Yeah. He's an asshole, and he's a troll. He trolled me in the room yesterday multiple times. Okay, and when people troll me, I'm not going to converse with them. Okay.
It seems like every time you lose a debate, you consider the other person a troll.
Yeah. Okay. Bye. Yeah. Now you're trolling.
Yeah.
I think that we should ignore all the trolls.
See, now, Skaal, you'll notice that you disagree with me on numerous points. Okay.
Yeah, the problem I'm having right now is that I'm actually completely lost. Could you do me a favor and actually?
All right, but I just want to point out that you disagree with me on numerous points during the entire conversation, and we had a completely cordial, lengthy discussion and even vigorous disagreement. Okay, because you're not an asshole. You don't troll. And in fact, you exercise critical thinking skills in spite of my disagreement with your conclusions. Okay? Mm-hmm. And when people troll me, okay, I'm not going to put up with it. And I don't care that people go, "Oh, you just call people trolls, you can't answer." Go on your merry way. Okay? I'm not interested in that trolling observation. Okay, so go ahead.
Could you just please wrap up the whole argument from the beginning again? Because I think I'm lost.
If you reject that God is the necessary precondition for intelligibility, okay, then when you speak, then you're going to have in mind, consciously or unconsciously, another ultimate absolute that is the precondition. So what is it?
An impersonal ultimate absolute, right?
Okay, tell me what that absolute is that everything else depends upon, and please don't repeat the word saying existence.
Okay, well, why do I have to have something else? That's the whole the problem I have.
I'm waiting for you to tell me what is the necessary precondition for intelligibility. What is that absolute?
The impersonal absolute. Why do I have to? No,
I want to know what that is.
Let me please. Why do I have to define it? That's the whole point that I don't understand.
What is it?
Why? What is it? Why do I have to answer that question? Why is that even a reason? Why would that be a reasonable question? I do not know what it is. That is the whole point. But I also don't make any claims.
Okay, so what you're saying is you're saying there's an absolute that is unconditionally non-dependent and provides for all dependency states, but I don't know what that is.
Yes.
Okay. Do you understand that declaration basically functions as a denial? An unaccounted for entity is a functional denial of that entity.
Okay, so
you're making an unaccounted for identity functions as a denial of that entity.
Okay, that I wouldn't agree with that statement, and let me explain why. Let's use an analogy.
Okay.
If you see a corpse somewhere, you go into the woods and you see a corpse with scratch marks. You do not know what it was, but you know that there was something that has killed this person with teeth and scratch marks. You can therefore infer that that thing was probably a wild animal. However, you do not know. Do you then, by your logic, I would then therefore deny the existence of the thing that killed that person?
Let me think about that for a second. Okay.
That's a good example.
What you're talking about is therefore you're identifying what this thing is. It has teeth. It's animated.
No, I do not identify it. I simply I can infer
you said it right. Yeah, you're
okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
No,
yes?
the point is, if you don't know what it is, you can infer, but that doesn't mean your inference is correct.
Right. Yes.
Okay. So what I want to know is, when you say God is not the necessary precondition, something else is, you tell me, well, I know it's not God, it's something else. What is it? And your answer is, I don't know.
Yes.
Then if you don't know what the absolute is, how did you rule out God as the personal absolute?
Is this Darth Dawkins?
Yeah. How did you? Okay. I don't know what the absolute is, but I know it's not personal. How do you know it's not?
Well, I don't know that it's not. However, since let me
You've now contradicted yourself.
Okay, you believe that, but let me stay with the corpse example for okay. No,
I'd rather. I want to stick with God. Okay, you said you reject that the absolute is personal, but you accept that it's absolute. On what grounds do you claim that the unknown absolute doesn't possess the property of personhood?
I personally would not definitively reject it, but you forced me to definitively reject it
you already are. I said, is God the necessary precondition for intelligibility? You said no.
I would say probably not, but you deny me the possibility of making probability statements.
Well, that's right. I did, and for good reason. Is because the property of personhood that would be embodied in the absolute, that quality would not be probabilistic or contingent. That property, along with the entity itself, would necessarily exist.
I agree that reality is not probabilistic, at least
unless
you look.
Either you accept that God is the necessary precondition for intelligibility, or you do not accept it. Now, then, when you say you don't accept it, and I say
I don't think it is necessary, but it is possible. That's the whole point. You say let me please. May I just say a few words?
Go ahead.
God. If I say, in my opinion, is improbable, that doesn't mean that therefore reality reflects that. In reality, either it is God or it is not God. However, if I make a statement about the probability, it is simply a statement about my mindset in that opinion.
You're making a mistake. Okay. Now, when you say God probably doesn't exist, right? The problem with that is contingencies are derivative of the absolute. God, by definition, is not a contingency and therefore not probabilistic. Okay.
So, wait a minute. You are saying that.
Listen.
I'm trying to understand what you're saying. Okay, please.
Do you accept that God is the necessary precondition for intelligibility? You either accept or don't accept.
I do not accept, but I also don't deny it.
We've come full circle now to the issue of agnosticism. That's